Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, where I get a chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. This broadcast is sponsored by Reveal-Brainspace, the industry's leading AI eDiscovery platform. Don't forget to subscribe to watch me, George Socha, weekly with leaders in eDiscovery. Thank you for tuning in.
Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. I am George Socha, Senior Vice President of Brand Awareness at Reveal. Typically, each Friday morning, I've been saying this for 2 days, maybe you're used to this. Typically, each day at Friday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, I host an episode of eDiscovery Leaders Live where I get the chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. This week, we are streaming live from ILTACON. This is day 2 of 4, I think it is. Before I go further, past episodes are available on the Reveal website. Go to revealdata.com, select resources, then select eDiscovery Leaders Live. My guest for this episode is Michael Amaral, Director Technology Innovation at HaystackID. Michael is a technologist with over 25 years experience helping companies solve complex data problems in compliance, governance, privacy, and litigation matters. Before joining HaystackID, he was VP of Sales and Operation for George John. I like the name. My middle name's John. Where he consulted with Fortune 500 companies and AmLaw 100 firms on process and infrastructure requirements for large-scale data management deployments. He spent 11 years as CTO and VP of Technical Operations for a large litigation support provider, functioning as the lead technical resource on some of the largest litigation matters in the U.S. Michael, welcome.
Thank you, George. Great to be here. Great to see people in person again.
Yes, it is. And before we go into the topics, how's it feel?
Good. It's good to be, other than what everyone's been experiencing with our lovely airlines lately.
Yeah, well, that's just life as we experience it now. But let's talk about a shift in the market. eDiscovery used to be all about eDiscovery, but now we've got some other things factoring in ways they didn't before: privacy and cyber.
Privacy, cyber, and, as you know, governance, right?
Yes.
It's we're starting to see a lot more privacy related issues and cyber related issues within our legal thing. And what surprises me is that we can apply the same technologies and processes that we do with a standard litigation discovery matter to cyber and privacy and governance. I mean, we do the same thing every time, right? We have to identify where the data is. We have to build an index of the data. We have to perform some analysis of that data, and we have to act on that data, whether that's for privacy and redact or report, or for cyber to produce a report of subjects who have been breached, or for governance, what's outside, help build and reduce enterprise risk as it results to data. But really, it's all the same processes, and the same tools with different spins on them can be used for a lot of these new opportunities.
Now, the same tools with different spins. How challenging are some of those different spins to accommodate?
I mean, a lot of the tools today you can use. We've gotten really good about having open APIs. So if we need a new way to look at data, we can call an NLP engine to have it look at the data and give us a PII density score on that data. We can call a redaction engine and have it go through and clean up that data for privacy. right? It's just a different use of the analysis, right? Instead of looking for responsive, non-responsive, we're looking for actual things inside the documents that we can take action on, whether it's build a breach subject list from the data, or use the data to go back and do a data cleanup project, or do some privacy related work on it.
It's easy to say we can do it all. It may be a little harder, and we do all of this. It may be a little harder to convince clients that these are viable paths. Are there challenges on that front?
There are challenges. I mean, like anything, we're going to run into. No one likes change, all right? And just like we've seen in discovery, it takes, unfortunately, usually some catalyst for the corporation to be aware that it has a problem.
Yes.
Right? And it's just about identifying those opportunities when someone goes, I've been breached. Therein lies an opportunity to not only report on the breach, but how do we go back and help you identify where your risky areas are, help you categorize and classify your data, which is stuff we've been doing for a long time, right? But do it earlier in the process. So when that happens again, you're more prepared for it and your risk is greatly reduced.
To accomplish this, you need a lot more, I assume, than just APIs.
Yeah, there are other tools in the marketplace that work well with the tools that we currently use. I mean, and you do need the whole new class of AI-based tools out there, which Reveal is known for. So I'll get a little plug-in for you guys. But that really help you understand the data better, right? We can look at data in scale now better than we've ever been able to before. We could always come to the same conclusions. How many people do you want to put on it? How long do you want them to look at it? Right? So we're becoming much more efficient in how we can go through the data. But you're right, we have to look at how it integrates with things like Microsoft Purview, right? How do we directly tie into that to be able to put stuff on litigation hold or preserve in place without having to collect everything and start overcoming some of those hurdles? But again, it all boils down to, at the beginning of it all, is you need to understand your data so you can be better about protecting it. And I mean, cyber is one of those things where you can spend infinite amounts of money to protect your data. Wouldn't it be better to identify the crown jewels and spend money really protecting those? Because it's not if you're going to get breached, it's when.
Right.
And what they're able to get.
And you don't care if they're rummaging around in the front yard.
Correct.
But,
yeah, you don't want them in the back stealing your corporate secrets, or God forbid dropping malware that locks up, and you've got ransomware and now you're a pipeline that shut down for 2 weeks.
All of this suggests to me that the range of services that HaystackID offers now has expanded beyond the traditional e-discovery offerings.
Yes, Haystack recently announced the relaunch of its global advisory group with 4 real functional areas. Privacy, run by Chris Wall. Governance, Matt Miller. Cyber and breach, Mike Sarlo. And the enterprise, which is Adam Rubinger. So those 4 groups, and the goal is for us to be able to go out and consult with our clients on all of these matters. And how do we help them better understand and manage the data before it becomes an issue, and then help when it becomes an issue.
Information governance, and that's part of what you're alluding to, at least here, has long been a challenge for corporations. And we've seen this time and time again. we're going to do this IG project, but this other thing has arisen and it's more urgent and more important in the moment and it needs the resources. So it moves to the front of the line. Maybe the dollars get siphoned off of IG for something else. Is there some of that same challenge when it comes to those early stages for cyber, for example?
Well, no, because cyber happens when you get breached.
I know,
right?
But one of the things you were mentioning, I thought, was some things that can help.
Help
Inoculate
mitigate
you.
your risks,
Yeah.
right? And again, I think it all goes right. We've got to do the same thing no matter which one of these it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a smart corporation, it's one of those projects that you can tackle on multiple fronts, right? You need to build a data map, right? And data maps have gone from the spreadsheets we used to build that were obsolete the minute we turned them over.
Oh, long before we turned them over, yeah.
But to now systems that continually interact and understand what data you have and where it is and what your processing workflows are, and when you're able to identify it and tie that together, right? That's step one. That helps you build all your tools. Step two is really going into the data and classifying and categorizing, right? And that doesn't, if that's for privacy, for governance, for cyber, it's the same thing, right? We've got to understand
the same mechanism to accomplish it. Okay.
We've got to understand what's inside those files.
Right. Yep.
It's great. We've got a bunch of file shares.
Yeah. Now what?
Now what, right? Now we need to look at them a little deeper. And the good news is what used to be tools just left for e-discovery.
Mm-hmm.
There are privacy companies like OneTrust and Big ID that specialize in building data maps and doing data inventories and allowing you to put parameters around your workflows. And seeing some of that and being able to tie that into our other processes really helps.
Yeah, because if I'm understanding what that helps you do is get both a figurative and a literal picture of what you're dealing with early on.
Right. And again, you know, it was funny because there was never a reason to do governance.
Right. And that was always the challenge.
The reason to do governance was, okay, I can save you money on storage. Storage was cheap.
Yeah.
Well, now we're getting the benefit of, in 2023, there'll be 5 new states with privacy laws, 5 with new privacy laws.
Mm-hmm.
So people are having to start these processes for their privacy initiatives.
Right.
And so you start looking at the data and you can initiate your data cleanup along with that. You know, it used to be the opportunity for good governance was a 365 migration, right? Let's try and do it smart. Let's classify and clean up before we bring in. And then people.
And if you do it well, great. And if you don't, well, okay, we got it done anyway.
Right. It's still there. And, you know, maybe there's more data there than there should be. But Microsoft doesn't want to tell you that.
No, and you know
that's not a
problem for them.
Right.
So we now have, really for the first time in a long time, maybe the first time ever, a catalyzing set of events that make IG relevant in a way that it never has been before.
Yeah, and really, it's privacy and breach and cyber.
2 of them. Yeah.
Right, because again, the more stuff that you have, the more stuff that has to be looked at for data after you've been breached. And you know, Haystack has developed a really good process for breach review, but even that, it's still a little manual. You know, there is no perfect breach. It involves people that understand data still, and I think that will change over the next couple of years with the onset of AI and building better models to identify who is a person, right? And then being able to verify based on what state they're in, what the reporting rules are. Is it in a data set? Is it in a document? What 2 pieces versus 3 pieces do we need? So as that starts to get smarter, the systems will help take some of that load, but the best thing you can do for it now is clean up your data.
These are issues that when you and I got into this, almost nobody was thinking about or talking about, right?
No, it was buy more storage, right?
Yeah.
We can, and I started as an old programmer for Continental Airlines in the 80s. And the amount of data that back then we had to be very, very efficient with what we used and what we stored, and and then storage became cheap and memory became cheap.
Mattered in those days,
right? Yeah. You wrote stuff to work in 64K. But now I sound like one of those grumpy old men, right?
Yeah, with no hair.
With no hair, one of those bald, grumpy old men.
That's right. Yeah. Haystack has as well the Haystack is also formed from Night Owl, and Night Owl had a strong corporate presence. Are you doing or expanding your privacy and your cyber work through corporate and law firm?
The privacy and governance are mostly corporate. Occasionally we'll have a law firm that says, hey, I've got a customer that needs this help. But for the most part, it's we find opportunities based on the standard things. But breach is usually, there are only certain people, they're the insurance companies and they're breach law firms. And, that's a more traditional kind of workflow. But the governance and privacy and the cyber as it relates to how do you secure your systems, that type consulting, really that is focused on the enterprise and with our enterprise partners.
Okay. How do lessons learned from this side of things, what you're learning in privacy and what you're learning in cyber, how do those then circle back and become useful on the e-discovery side?
Well, again, anything we can learn about better ways to manage data is always going to help us, right? And I think some of these identification and classification type tools that are coming out of the privacy market can be applied at e-discovery, because a lot of times your customers come to you with a problem, right? We've got this, and they only see the immediate problem.
Right.
But we have so much more, that data can tell us so much more about them and help them in ways. What's it take to turn out a governance scan based on the data within a discovery set?
Right.
What's it take to run a compliance scan or a privacy scan on that same data? Again, you may have to modify your tool sets. We've got data.
It's data. Yep. What as you're working with this data, whether it's for discovery purposes, for privacy, for cyber, are there any particularly challenging aspects to that?
Well, yeah, there's always been kind of the legal requirements for chain of custody, and now with privacy thrown on top of that, right? You really can't just use the data for another purpose, right? You've got you're a data processor for your customer, and so based on those rules, so really you have to sell them on the idea and then update your DPAs, and you can kind of go through that process. But really, I think there's an opportunity there. I just don't know how we mine that, and I mean, go back and re-look at petabytes of data for other information.
Yeah. Yep. As folks are trying to figure out how to take advantage of the e-discovery tools and workflows they have, and point them to new areas like privacy and security. I mean, I would imagine that a fair number of both law firms and corporate legal departments would face a few challenges in trying to envision and figure out just how they can take advantage of that, how they can do that. You all must help fill that gap.
Yeah, right? I mean, you know, if you look at any one of these things individually, you go, how do we tackle that? It's huge, right?
Yeah.
I'm lucky the board gave me a DPO, right? Forget a team to manage ROPAs and DSARs and California privacy requests and all of that. And it's like with everything. It's like eating the elephant, right? It's one bite at a time, right? What do you need to do first? You need to understand where you are, right? And then you need to build a roadmap to where you want to be and when you want to get there. Once you've built your strategic roadmap, whether you bring in consultants like the group from Haystack or you have a longer runway, right? And it's all up to you. But we can help you build the building blocks and give you a path to get there, which I think is really helpful, because if you can see everything in front of you and say, okay, this is what it's going to take to get me to be GDPR compliant, CCPA, or is it CCRA now, or right?
We're gonna have to update our acronyms on a monthly basis.
Right. I mean, but you know, I expect hopefully within the next 5 to 7, there's a federal one, but I doubt it.
We'll see.
You know, does it? I mean,
I've been pleasantly proven wrong on these things in the past.
But if you start thinking about it, right? I mean, depending on what sector you're in, you've got different rules to follow.
Right.
Right. I mean, if you're in healthcare, you've got HIPAA, there's FERPA, there's all, every different sector has different rules and regulations about what's privacy, and then throw the states on top of it. And that's why, we at Haystack, we're really fortunate to have Chris. While he really understands all the privacy, I mean, he's also our DPO, but he also works with the group on those types of engagements. So understanding what rules you need to abide by based on where you do business and what type of business you're in is as important up front, and then building that roadmap out of, okay, this is how you build a privacy program, right? And that's what they are, or a governance program, right? Because it's easy to scan the data once, delete, have a RID day or shred day, right? With your data. Incentivize your employees to get rid of what they don't need, clean up their mailboxes. We've seen that, right?
It can be done, yes.
It can be done, but then you're just doing it again next year.
No. Then what? You're just pulling out the trash bin once again.
Right. So we've been doing all of these things, but we've been doing them in different ways. And really what we're trying to do is help people operationalize those things, right? Make it as a standard workflow so that when a request comes in, we know what it's going to do. When data rolls off retention, here's the workflow. It needs to be, if your workflow is a review and approval and a deletion or whatever that workflow is, but you have to operationalize it. Otherwise, it'll get done once, it'll get put in a drawer, and it'll be as good as those spreadsheets we used to create.
Right. For those people out there who are looking for a Haystack to help them out, what criteria should they be considering? This is your shameless plug up.
Well, I mean, really, and I've been doing a little of that all along, but it's really about what kind of experts do they have? And is it all in that one team? You know, Haystack has been really good about getting the best of the best in their fields and bringing them together to create this consultancy to help people build those things. And so really, I mean, a lot of people say, yeah, we can put governance in and we can scan your data, but, you know, do they come to you with, let's look at your existing tool set. Here are some alternatives that can enhance what you have. You know, I hate rip and replace. Sometimes it's a necessity, but most of the time you can get your privacy or governance or cyber program started with the tools you have and documenting what the process needs to be, because before you can automate a process, you have to be able to do it by hand.
Yeah.
You have to understand what the steps are.
Right. Else, how would you know what to
To
automate?
automate,
Exactly.
right.
Right. Yeah. Any final thoughts here?
Look, it's good to be back in public, George. You know, it's been a long 2 years, but I appreciate it. And looking forward to, strengthening the partnership with Reveal and Haystack over the next year and a half, 2 years, and how we can really start utilizing the AI power of Brainspace and Reveal and all of it together to do better things with data.
It's all what we're all shooting for.
Yep.
Moving forward. Well, thank you, Michael. Michael Amaral is Director of Technology Innovation at HaystackID. I am George Socha. This has been eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. Michael, once again, thank you.
Thank you, George. I appreciate it.